I'll wait a few seconds to make sure that we're actually properly live. Okay. So welcome to Pixels plays Mass Effect 3 Epilogue. I kind of did this a little bit with this discussion video, but I have had a lot more thoughts since then and a lot more of a detailed idea of what I would say happens after the events of Mass Effect 3. In Zandra's story and the story of pretty much everyone. I hope I actually have notes here on a notepad file that's sort of compiled of like all my ideas for like what happens to these characters eventually. And I'm not sure if it covers everyone, so maybe someone will actually be in chat and we can actually have more of a discussion and reactions, but who knows if that's going to happen. Hey, I can hope. Anyway, I'm gonna just kind of recap um, some of the stuff that I've talked about in my previous video. I hope you don't mind if you've already seen it. But basically, efforts begin to repair the mass relays, and it takes about 6 months. At least just for the one in the Sol system, which is kind of a priority. I mean, there's a lot of fleets from, across the galaxy in the Sol system currently. A number of them managed to retreat as things were getting bad, but there still are a great number of them in there. So basically, I think that's enough to their combined efforts. Combined coordinated efforts to repair, eventually figure out how to repair the Sol relay. The next priority after that is to sort of just figure out what happened to Normandy and recover that. Also, cleaning up the Crucible, and they find Shepard barely alive, and rush her to Huerta. Or if that's still even functional, it's probably functional. But yeah, she manages to make a full recovery with a little bit of rehabilitation, and basically they manage to through their quantum entanglement stuff, get a hold of the Normandy, so that at least you can like speak to her crew. In the interim, as she's going through rehabilitation and until they finally could get the Mass Effect relay situation sorted out. So when Normandy finally returns, there's a big space parade, and some parades on the surface of like Earth, and probably within the Citadel. There's probably numerous parades, but of course the coolest one's gonna be the space parade, because I don't think I've ever seen one before in fiction, or at least in the movies I've watched. Maybe I haven't watched enough movies, but I think the idea of a space parade would be kind of cool. You have like zero-G dancers and stuff like that. Like maybe like a zero-G marching band. Could be interesting. We had to settle down like at the party, the more private party that happens afterwards. Shepard proposes to Liara, having not found any particular idea of any real information on like how that works for Asari. She decided to just do it the human way. I think I mentioned before that it would be kind of funny if Liara like had no idea what it was, but I think of her being the Shadow Broker and being a lot more aware of the world around her, if for no other reason that she doesn't want to be caught unaware by, she's been in enough awkward situations to be like, okay, I'm gonna study up on things because um, you know, don't want to embarrass myself. If Shepard decides to propose to me or something, and I don't understand what that is. Um, it's also quite possible that, like, by Asari standards, they're already bond mates. You know, so they're already effectively married by Asari standards. I don't know if that's true or not, but um, yeah, Shepard definitely wants to make it like official in human terms. Um, so yeah, so I've been finally getting into some of my notes. These are in no particular order. These are just kind of as they occurred to me. Um, Also, like I think it'd be interesting to. I mean, like going, I guess back first to my idea of this being a Netflix series, which is again a big pie in the sky thing that I don't think I could ever possibly be involved in. But you can have an epilogue episode. Heck, you could potentially even have two epilogue episodes, but this could probably all fit into one. Uh, oh yeah, there's one note I forgot to put in there. So I'll just mention off the cuff. I believe that the Hydra, the Leviathans or whatever the heck they're actually called. I don't think they ever really established what they actually called themselves. If they ever called themselves anything that could be pronounced in our tongue. Um, um, but yeah, they're basically charged with war crimes or whatever. Yeah, they aided in it, but they aided largely in self defense, and there is some degree of investigation into just the stuff that they've been doing with indoctrinated people, like on that one lab. Um, Heck, there could potentially be an entire episode just dedicated to unraveling that the mystery of like what happened on that base and what they've been trying to accomplish. Um, could be even more exciting than my current idea, which is more just other things. I'll get to you once I get to that point from my list. Um, first on my list, again, it's no particular order, so this may be a bit scattered. Um, I basically have my entire screen filled with notes. Uh, you know, presented in bullet points. So Talia and Garrus eventually get married, or whatever their racist equivalence of marriage might be, or whichever one they settle upon. Like, how does Corian marriage work? How does Turian marriage work? Do they undergo two different ceremonies, or one for each their respective races, or what? Um, but yeah, basically they've adopted a number of war orphans as their children. Hard to say what their names are. One of them may or may not be named Shepherd. I don't know. I mean, granted, I don't know if they'd be able to name adopt unless there's some like ones that are babies. When they are literally babies when they adopted them and they didn't have names uh, already. Then I don't know if they'd be able to name any of their children Shepherd. I don't think they would personally. Um, so I have no idea what their children's names would be. Um, I'm not creative enough to like just like I have a lot of children's names in here, but like yeah. Anyway, um, so the Corians are also readmitted as a council race, with possibly Talia as their ambassador. They don't get an actual seat on the council, but they are considered a council race, so they have an embassy and all of that again. Also, Zandra recommends Kelly Chambers to replace Udina as the human counselor. Uh, I've been kind of just thinking about who she'd recommend. Kelly seems like like I mean she's young, so maybe like I don't actually like say in my notes whether or not she actually gets the position. It's just that at least she speaks to Kelly about it. It's hard to say if Kelly would even accept the honor of letting herself be recommended. But Kelly seems like kind of maybe the best pick just because she is like give me I'm out of focus suddenly. There we go. Like she is the most willing to like work with aliens, and this is supposed to be cooperation. Like she doesn't know a lot about politics, technically, but she knows a bit about psychology. And she can learn as she goes along. She can study up. I don't know. Like there's no one else that Shepard knows. So whether or not Kelly would actually accept the nomination or get the position is a subject of debate, but this is probably who Zandra would most recommend to replace Udena as the counselor. She was actually offered the position herself, and she declined because she hates politics. Also, speaking of recommendations, James is offered an immediate N7 designation or whatever. How I actually looked it up, and I'm like, I don't know, I got lazy and didn't like read for the whole thing. But whatever that is exactly, I believe it's like the top rank you can get. Like there's N1, N2, and this is like N7 is the top rank within this particular school. And because of everything he went through in the Reaper War, they like are offering him to just be immediately considered N7, but he refuses and says he wants to go through the process properly, and earn it properly, even though he has like kind of legitimately earned it for his deeds thus far. Yeah, James really wants to prove himself, so that's what happened. I also mentioned that in my previous video, it's not in my notes, that Shepard kind of wins several medals of honor and valor and what have you from multiple races. Probably too many to wear on her uniform. She just wears the ones that she's most proud of on her uniform, and the rest are kind of in a display box somewhere, like in her quarters. Miranda and possibly even Oriana, probably a little bit later, Oriana might join into the operation, but she starts working with Liara and Farron, effectively making the myth of the Shadowbreaker being multiple people into more of a reality. Because Liara, is tired of taking on the whole entire load of Shadowbreaker herself, and eventually needs to focus on being a mother and all that. And also just her, working on the book about Protheans and, getting back to that sort of thing. Like, she may eventually retire from being Shadowbreaker entirely. But yeah. And it's possible that Miranda eventually discovers some treatment to restore her fertility, or at the very least she discovers that Oriana does not have the same condition that she has. Yeah, and it is content knowing that. Jacob and his wife, they get married. I didn't bother to look up her name. But they have a son together, naming him Alexander Shepard Taylor. um, against against Zondra's wishes because she wanted him to be called Alexander Cage Taylor in honor of the movie Triple X. But yeah, they didn't want to go that far. And of course, one of Rex's numerous children is in fact named Morden. And then Grunt is still doing his thing, and eventually he becomes a father as well. That's a bit later. It's hard to say. Like, I think there was some debate over like whether or not Grunt should be allowed to breed. So maybe that needs to get sorted out first. I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that at this point it would be something of a moot point that he was tank bred. Yeah. That he would be considered a catch just for all the stuff that he's been doing. Um, Heck, for the fresher moth thing alone. But anyway, um, also, another thing I mentioned before is that Zandra and Lear have at least 3 daughters, whose names I have determined. Beyond that, I have no idea. Um, they're named Solus, Krios, and Giona. Um, the last one being named after Legion with a bit of creative liberty. Because Legion would be a terrible name for anyone, male or female. And since Morden was already taken, and Thane, I'm not sure if that sounds like a girl's name. Could be, I guess, but I don't know. I like Krios a little better, so Sazandra likes Krios, the sound of Krios a bit better. Um, and there's a large arrangement of statues that are in the middle of the Scylla Presidium depicting most of the key members of the Normandy crew throughout the years, or at least the ones who signed off on having themselves made in statues. Or who Zandra talked into letting themselves be made into statues. And of course, the ones who died are obviously made into statues, and there's not much they can do about it because they're dead. So obviously, Thane, Caden, like they probably like the ones who have fallen are probably have special little arrangement off to the side of this diorama, or I guess it might be considered a diorama. There's probably also the Normandy itself is like somewhere. Not really, maybe not quite as life size. It might be like maybe even just like a little pedestal in front of the diorama. Is a smaller statue of the Normandy. Beyond that, there are other statues of everyone probably planted on their respective planets. So a statue of just Shepard on Earth, probably like Liara and Samara on Thessia. Heck, Zandra might be in all of them, like just standing next to them. Even though Zandra would much prefer to be left out of most of the statues, but you know, she kind of recognizes how important she is, so it's like the symbol of hope and all of that. Also, Idi was I can't remember if I covered that. Like Idi was restored to functionality thanks to some hard work from Tally, and actually, I guess the other Normandy engineers probably also helped as well. And part of this may have been due to the necessity of getting the Normandy off the planet. Um, I mean, it's hard to say whether or not Normandy needs Edie in order to function, but certainly helps. Um, and of course, they like her, so they want to. And again, I'm not. I don't think the destroy ending was very clear on whether or not any of the damage to the other synthetics besides the Reapers would be permanent, or render them completely non-functional to in a way that could not be recovered. So I'm taking the creative liberty of saying, like, at least Edie can be restored because we like Edie. I feel really bad that we nearly killed her. And one of the first things Joker says to Shepard, of course, is, "You knew we could bring her back, right? Right? Right, Shepard? Right? Right." um. Yeah. Sure, Joker. I had full confidence that you could do that. Um. The Geth, on the other hand, may be a little bit more difficult to restore functionality to, and there's definitely going to be a huge debate amongst the Quarians themselves, let alone the Council, as to whether or not that should even be allowed to happen. Um, you know, because there are people on either side, like saying, that like they were starting to help us to adapt to our new world. While they contributed quite a bit at in the interim, we're nowhere near this, and we need the Geth to, and we owe it to them for the help they provided thus far, and as reparation for the shit we did before. Um, but then there's the council, who are like, you made a mistake of bringing, effectively creating VI that could evolve into AI in the first place. And should we even allow this sort of thing to happen? Because it kind of violates our rules. Again, in the matter of speaking, it could violate our rules against AI. Also, this is my largest little paragraph-sized thing. There's also a debate raging about synthetic and AI rights, which, again, if we're making this into an episode, or this could be a centerpiece of it. Also, I can't remember if I brought it up yet, but it'd be interesting to do a visual novel of centered around all of my ideas that I'm developing here. Like that could even be an interesting idea for a fan game. I just don't really have the resources to put that together. I had to find other people who are willing to make this into a reality, especially artists. I not particularly good at drawing. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could probably, I'm decent at Photoshop, so I guess I could take just screen caps from the games and make those into character portraits. But yeah, I'd rather have an actual proper team of talented fan fiction or whatever artists and such to do something like this. And I would just consult and potentially do some dialogue writing, because I can write really good dialogue, I guess. They would just have to hope that EA and BioWare would be okay with this sort of project existing. It would be even more awesome if they actually endorsed it, or I mean, it would be interesting, because I think in terms of making it canon, you can say, well, it's a canon if you pick the destroy ending and then make all the choices that Sandra made. Ultimately, the choices that Sandra made are ones that would make for some pretty decent, stories. The Synthesis ending, like I said, it's a little too perfect in some ways. Maybe some people reject the change and die, or what happens to them is a bit of a question. But yeah, it is a little too clean, a little too convenient, and there's not really much of a story to tell from there. The same kind of goes in a different way to the Control ending. you know, and it's a little, Zondra's gone, and she's become this, being a luminous being of energy controlling the Reapers, and like, what's she gonna have them do? Like, what's gonna happen from there? I have no idea. Like, and it's a measurable power that could potentially solve any problem that comes up. So like, that doesn't make for good drama either. Um, then of course there's the fuck everything ending, where more than likely everyone dies. So you can tell the story of like how the next cycle wins, but uh, thanks to the help of everybody from this cycle. But that that kind of would be just a retread of, in some ways, it'd be a retread of the entire Mass Effect trilogy, just that everyone actually comes together and wins. So, and there's no humans to relate to. So, to serve as the audience proxy or whatever. So, yeah, I think the Destroy ending actually creates the best. Like, if we are going to continue the Mass Effect story, you had to go with the Destroy ending. Like, there's no other way. That's because it's the only one in which that Shepard survives, but because it's the only one in which you can tell an interesting story. And as for like the individual decisions, like preserving the Geth, again, you can create this whole conflict about whether or not the Geth should be brought back, or repaired and revived. A debate about whether or not sentience should have life. Another thing I think I forgot to note was the Rachni, which I think preserving them, like, that creates a little thread you can talk about, and that could become at least a background piece. I'm not sure how like interesting you'd have like whether or not the Rachni should be charged with the crimes of their ancestors or something like that. I don't know. Whereas if you just choose to completely destroy them, that's not good, but not even something we can touch on. So a lot of the big choices are like you have a choice that's not very interesting versus a choice that's actually interesting and you can tell interesting stories about. We're gonna go with the ones that you can tell interesting stories about. So, I mean, the only other things would be, I guess, who Shepard's love interest is and what gender they are. I thought it'd be interesting if we could tell like two different stories with one being male Shepard and female Shepard, but also it would feel I think it feel kind of also you could potentially go for like all the choices in like in visual novel form and but then like well the last choice again only one of the choices creates a narratively interesting place to start from, but it would feel a little weird to be able to make all the choices that Shepard makes and not be able to make the final choice. Although I guess we're justifying it pretty well here, but still, then going for the work of incorporating all of that and trying to come up with interesting ways to spin the narrative in spite of whatever happens, whatever choices Shepard makes. I don't know. But we're mainly talking about Zondra's story here. We're not even talking about the visual novel. Well, we are kind of, but let's get back on track. But yeah, like, the council stands firmly by its ban on true AI, especially given everything that happened with Reapers, and especially the now deeply classified details they learned from Shepard. Basically everything that happened on the Crucible and with the Catalyst is classified. the true nature of the Reapers. I don't know what that mean for a trial against the Leviathans, because that would also be kind of classified, and I don't know how we present that trial without because it was something I was thinking like it could be done in the background of the story, sort of, like you see like Newsnet or something in the background, like just talking about it. But then if it's all classified, then like whatever sort of trial would be something that's conducted more in secret or something. I don't know. Although like the Leviathans would be a fairly difficult thing to hide. So I don't know. That'd be pretty tricky. Um, Basically, it is that when true AI occurs, either by accident or design, what rights should such a being have? Like that's the debate. So ED, for example, is a key example and a very important example in this. It would be a very important example in this whole debate, because it's kind of her continued existence after everything that happens. That would be on the line. But we also have to ask, like, how do we determine whether an AI has actually achieved full sentience? And then should it be treated as any other sapient life form, or is the danger of the existence of such, of such synthetic beings pose too great a risk to just be allowed to continue to be? And Zandra ultimately suggests that this should be dealt with on a case by case basis, and of course, closely considers Edie to be relatively harmless, at least presently. Like, if she somehow becomes a danger, it's kind of like if she starts to become like homicidal or something, I will deal with her personally. Jack going back to the individual characters in the order that they've occurred to me as I was typing these notes. Jack continues her work at Grissom Academy. It is all said that her swear jar currently contains enough credits to purchase a small moon. Just a fun fact. Shepard insists that Javik help Liara with her book on the Protheans before going off on his mission to commit suicide. He begrudgingly considers it a return of the favor that was earned when he was allowed to help avenge his people by playing at least a role in destroying the destruction of the Reapers. Of course, Zaid, as we kind of already saw in the epilogue proper, retires to a beautiful island, probably on Earth. Kasumi basically just returns to doing her thing after Jacob refuses her offer to become his mistress. Ashley and James, this covering mainly, I guess, relationships. Ashley and James have started dating, though it's hard to tell whether or not this is going to result in anything permanent. Samara joins her daughter as they're building a monastery. Again, that's also kind of implied in the epilogue proper. Joker and Edie are still together and eventually hold a wedding ceremony, although they as yet cannot legally marry. But Shepard and Kelly, if she actually is admitted to the council, are working on that issue. Donnelly and Daniels eventually get married as well. Chakwas and Engineer Adams remain strictly friends. Not everyone has to get married. Shepard is finally promoted to captain and uses Normandy mainly for scientific missions, as well as most often stuff related to rebuilding from the aftermath of the war. And my last little note here is that Shepard is also helping with aid to the Batarians, kind of making up in some ways for what happened on Torfin, and other things. But the one thing that she stands by completely is that they need to reform their society and abolish slavery, or at the very least, restrict that to Ilium-esque indentured servitude. At worst. Um, um, and I suppose if she was really pressed, she would basically want there to be very strict um, regulation on slaves and slave trades, like how one attains slaves and how one trades slaves, who can be made a slave. Uh, I don't know, stuff like that. Um, my own campaign setting actually has the elves. Just side note into my D&D campaign setting that I'm building. Elves have slaves. Uh, if it's a particular race, the cat elves. um, but there's some very strict regulations regarding particularly how slaves are treated. And actually, slaves can potentially, with additional work on their own in their free time, they can actually work to basically buy themselves out of slavery. Um, buy their own freedom. This is due to, I think, various treaties with the human Tinnaman Empire. So it could be. So it's possible they might settle into something like that. Like basically, it's just slavery is very regulated, and slaves have to be treated properly and not abused, and you know. Potentially even have ways to buy themselves out of slavery, um, and possibly some restrictions on, I don't know, how one attains people as slaves. I don't know. It's just like Zonder would prefer to eliminate it altogether, for sure. Um, so I think that's kind of all I had to say about my little epilogue. Uh, Again, like I kind of jumped the gun doing my discussion video. I mean, I think I said everything I wanted to do, like in terms of just discussing the game and um, my thoughts on that. But I also just came up with more and more ideas about like what I think would happen after the end, and I should really like wrap up everything, like come up with ideas for like what happens to almost everyone. I hope I didn't miss anyone, um, like miss any characters that I'm pretty sure I covered all the main characters throughout the series. Um, so hopefully I've got everything covered there. Um, this is actually just a little bit longer than my last video. Yeah, I just wanted to, before I started my next Let's Play, which will be later this evening probably, of Kings of Amalur Reckoning. Again, I might, if I manage to spend my Elgato eventually, I might start like a side LP or something of Robinson the Journey on PlayStation VR. I'm not sure how it's going to work out because I really don't like jumping between two LPs. Not because, or two playthroughs or whatever you want to call them, but just because it is a pain to, have two separate things going on at the same time and having to like swap out the tags and the game titles and the title cards and all of that stuff while I'm playing two different games. Um, but anyway, um, that's what's coming out later tonight. Hopefully, unless it becomes too. It'll definitely be. I'll definitely start sometime um, tonight or sometime tomorrow. So, um, yeah, and hopefully the fact that I'm doing this stream isn't gonna like mess with YouTube promoting my second stream, because I when I do two streams in a day, my second stream tends to not get as many views. I'm not sure if it has to do with the YouTube algorithm or what, but yeah. So so you don't miss it. Be sure to subscribe or follow depending on where you're watching this, if you're interested in seeing what I do next, or if you're a fan of Epilogue. Come check it out. I'm not sure what kind of character I'm. Well, I've already kind of established the look of the character. I'm gonna try to recreate as best I can. I already created like a pixel art type of title card. I believe I posted it on Facebook. I'll probably be doing some extra title cards as I'm actually able to get her into some proper armor. I'm not sure what her name is. I may name her after one of my D&D characters. Probably a Japanese type of name. Maybe if the people tune in early enough, I'll get some suggestions for what to name her. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what her personality will be. I mean, given the nature of the plot, she's gonna be started out as something of an empty slate. So we may come up with how she operates as we go. You know, actually, one thing I kind of like about Mass Effect is that you have this background system, so you can kind of have an idea of where to start in terms of your role playing. And it's just something else, you know, even though this is supposed to be an epilogue, I'm not sure if I really discussed too much about her character arc. You know, it sort of evolved from just a general idea of her starting out as a more renegade and then evolving into more of a paragon, and then it came into the idea of being, you know, sort of renegon, almost pure renegade at the beginning, then more of a renegon toward the end, and then in Mass Effect 2 being Renegon, you know, expressing certain paragon tendencies kind of throughout, like her loyalty and you know, the fact that she yeah, I think loyalty is probably her biggest you know, paragon trait throughout Mass Effect 2, but other than that, she is like kind of fairly hard renegade to the point where we filled the renegade meter all the way. Then Mass Effect 3, yeah, she ends up being a lot more of a paragade, you know, in terms of being paragon first, renegade second, even though her final decision was ultimately. So I mean, it was interesting just to kind of have this sort of character arc, you know, because, you know, and the initial idea was kind of actually going to be almost like, at least throughout the trilogy, a 180 turn, but I think it's interesting to make it like actually kind of subtle and maybe even a little bit realistic, that she doesn't like completely let go of her ruthlessness, and I mean at the very end she kind of has to make a ruthless choice, you know, to potentially sacrifice all synthetic life in favor of preserving organic life and allowing it to continue on its own terms. And in the cycle. So yeah, I'm actually like kind of happy with how it turned out. I'm kind of happy with the ending, as it is. It's not the happiest ending. It doesn't have the. I didn't use the happy ending mod. I kind of, due to the way that the mods work, I mean, it is possible it could have worked in not just not corrupted anything, but I've been thinking about play. I was at least thinking about playing through it again, or playing for the final 2 missions again, with the mod installed. Now that I have it already beaten and everything, I thought I can just go back and try to play it with the mod and hope it works. But now, well, I think I'm so satisfied and just relatively happy with the way it turned out. I'm not that disappointed. And I also like, just again, as you can see here, I like using my imagination to come up with how things turn out from after the ending. It's in a lot of ways it's a lot more fun to just figure out, like, okay, how does it go from what we see to happily ever after. There's enough hope, at least with the destroy ending, which is kind of a little ironic that maybe in a way. But I mean, it is our goal. Like, we went there to destroy the Reapers, and we did. And but there's this collateral damage. Like, there's always collateral damage. And I guess in a way, it's kind of almost. It's Zandra kind of overcoming her doubts and her sort of questioning whether what the choices she made in the past were the right choices. And at the end she also has to accept that, like, she can't change what she did in the past, and also just that sometimes there is no other choice. Like, you have to make, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice, and she was willing to sacrifice her own life because there was a chance, that because of her synthetic components that she would die. And I mean, she's already pretty rough, at the end there. So, it matters that she was willing to sacrifice herself too. She ended up pulling through in the end, but yeah. But it's my final word. I'm probably gonna keep the original discussion up just because I think there's some things I'd probably say in there that I didn't repeat here. So it's still worth watching both, hopefully, and hopefully we'll enjoy both and not mind that I'm reiterating a lot of points. It doesn't seem like the game has popped in the chat. I was kind of hoping someone would, so I could just actually have a conversation about the stuff that I've been discussing. But hey, still a relatively small channel even after 2 years. At least on YouTube. It might take me. I have no idea how long it'll take me on Twitch. But yeah, this thank you to everyone who's been watching, been sticking with me through all the ups and downs, all the interruptions of my parents coming to bring me groceries, all the little Asperger's tantrums that occasionally flare up. I think I'm getting a little better at not getting too fired up to an embarrassing level, but yeah. I think it actually just happened. I don't know. But anyway, let's go to our wall of Patreon, because there's only one so far. But you can change that with as little as a $1 a month contribution. So far we only have like one notable perk. Just a family video of me getting a Super Nintendo for Christmas long ago. Back in the good old days. But if you're curious to see that, and we'll do some like potentially some behind the scenes stuff and like extra fun things. Heck, I might. I'm uncertain about making like things like me this like into a like patron exclusive thing. I do have like, I think like, a goal of I can't remember how many people I want to get like as patrons, but I might be doing patron exclusive streams. That'll be I think in addition to what I normally stream. Once I get a certain number of patrons, I can't remember what it is. It might even be as little as 10. Is having enough people to who would probably want to tune in just because they're freaking paying for it. Whereas as things stand right now, like I'd be streaming to maybe one person, being Aaron McMahon, our $10 patron. But anyway, if you don't feel so generous, if you don't feel like the perks are quite worth it just yet, you can still do all the little things that will help to grow this channel, hopefully. Either on Twitch or YouTube or both. Yeah, you can go to both. You can watch it on Twitch and then go to my YouTube channel, which I'll have to probably hunt for because I don't have. Yeah, it'll take me a while before I can get. I can't remember what parameters. I might even have to be a partner to have the option to get a custom URL, which is kind of dumb, but it makes some sense, I guess. Well, just do all those things, and you can also like our Facebook page. There's links in the description. If you're on YouTube, I might see about adding some of those links on Twitch if I can figure that out. I may have like when I've been editing the title for the stream, like seen it and just not bothered to edit it. Or pay enough attention to like see it. Oh, here. But anyway, as usual, thanks for watching, and until next time, sayonara.